Hi guys, welcome to our first event here at Achieve. So if you've been following along on the channel for the past month, we've been posting videos almost every single day on the college process. And we've covered everything from what you should do as a freshman and a sophomore to how you should actually fill out your college applications as Stop, you're having It's technical difficulties right now. Give me a second. Back we are here. You guys too much. Well, okay, whatever, Timothy. Sorry about that. Well, we're back. Anyways, like I was saying, today's our first stream, and we are going to be taking a look at secrets to a Stanford acceptance. Now, obviously, we are not admissions officers, so we can't guarantee anything. We can't say this is the way that you're going to get in. But what we can do is give our best advice. And basically, we'll put you in the best possible path so that you can get accepted to your dream school, whether it's Stanford, whether it's any other school. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panel here. So today I'm joined by the C-suite of Achieve Ed. So I'm Jeffrey. I'm the executive producer of the YouTube channel. Addie.
Hey everyone. I'm Adion. If you do not know already, I am a freshman to Stanford. I am bioengineering.
Hello everyone. I'm Timothy, and I'm studying at UW-Madison.
Hey everyone, I'll be at UC Berkeley.
All right, great. So that's our team right there. And by the way, I forgot to mention, I'm Jeffrey, and I'll be going to Dartmouth this fall. Okay, now, surprise! Before we get into the presentation, thank you to all of you who are viewing live right now, because guess what? We have a giveaway. So here is the giveaway, and basically you enter this code on Amazon.com. This is an Amazon gift card for you guys, and basically this was just paid out of my own pocket just to kind of thank you guys for joining the stream and staying along with us here tonight. So go ahead and enter that code, put it in the chat if you did get that code there, and yeah, let's go ahead and get right into the presentation here. So I'm going to go introduce Addie. Hi, Addie.
Hey guys, so let's get started. I'm talking about college applications. Now, obviously, YouTube we're all talking about secret to Stanford acceptance. But really, this whole presentation is about really in general the college application process. And how do you go through this whole process? So let's first start out with the college application. Right? What is this purpose? Now, the purpose sort of present your narrative, right? In your college application, your Common App, Coalition App, through your various activities. What you're trying to do is really talk to show the admissions officers, the college admissions officers, who you really are, right? What are your talents, your passions, what are you really good at, your personality traits, and you're trying to convey that in your application. So that is really the whole purpose. And throughout this presentation, think about how are you in this college application going to present your own narrative. Now, let's start out with admissions factors, right? What are the factors that go into your college application, right? So we're gonna start out first with the main factor that everyone usually thinks, right? That is the GPA, right? Most people coming into high school, they all get really nervous, trying to maintain that high especially if they're trying to get into like a top university, right? They think that they need that 4.0, that perfect GPA. And that is partly true, but there is some like misconceptions to that. Most people think, number one, GPA will make or break your application, right? That if you want to get into a really, top university, that if you get a few Bs, that's it, right? Most students think that's it. They can't get in anymore. And that could not be further from the truth, right? GPA, in fact, does not make or break your college application, right? It is okay, even for top schools, right, to get a couple of Bs, right? Even a C, it doesn't really matter, right? What GPA really is a filter that colleges can use, right? You should meet a certain minimum requirement for a specific college. Now, this doesn't mean that you simply can just, get all C's in your high school or even IPs, right? And expect that you get into like the top school, right, in the nation or in the world, right? But it also doesn't mean that getting a few B's is gonna be like the end, right? You can, okay? It's still possible to get into. It's really just a filter that colleges use. As soon as you meet the minimum requirements, you are good. Now, let's get into sort of that reason why, right? If you already didn't know, each high school uses a different scale for their GPA, right? So a school like say in Lexington, Massachusetts, their high school uses a different GPA scale than, a school, a suburban large public school in the Midwest, right? They use different scales. And because of those different scales, really colleges have to use this sort of holistic admissions process, right? So for example, an A plus that you may get in like Lexington High School is not the same as an A plus that you get in large public school in the Midwest, right? There's a difference. And colleges know that and they account for that, right? That is why, while many high school students think that they need that A plus, right? They need that perfect GPA. That is sort of far from the truth, right? While it is true that you should maintain high grades and you should always strive for good grades, that doesn't mean that you need that A plus or that the A minus is like the end of the world. That is not at all the case. What colleges mostly care about is what we call course rigor, right? Your coursework, they care about, if your high school allows you to take about like 20 APs, right? They expect you to take APs. If you take like 1 or 2 APs when your high school allows you to take like 30 APs, that doesn't look as good as a student who's really maximizing their high school's potential, right? Taking the maximum number of like top level courses. This also doesn't mean take all APs, but it means you should take at least, a few classes which have high rigor, right? High course rigor. So that's all based on the GPA. Now let's get into the second factor, right? That is the SAT, ACT scores. Now students tend to stress about this a lot, right? They study for months, right? The SAT and ACT. But it's just, again, like the GPA, another factor, right? Another filter, sorry. That's all it is, right? As long as you hit your colleges, now these statistics are posted online, you can like search them up. Different websites will give you like various like different numbers, but as soon as you hit like the minimum like SAT or ACT score that they usually like students get into in the past, that's all you need. No admissions officer is going to look beyond that to see if you get like a perfect score. Because again, college admissions officers are reading your application for maximum 8 minutes at the max, right? They don't have time to be like looking at your SAT, ACT score and making sure that it's really like a perfect score, right? They're just going to skim through it. That's all it is. Now, for a general sort of advice that we have, if you're looking into a very like high level top school, generally we would recommend, getting like a 1500 or a plus. And you can convert this maybe to like a 32 or 33. Again, this is like really high level, right? If you have the lower 1500 plus or 1500, it does not matter at all, right? But if you do have 1500 plus, then you are fine. You do not have to retake. You don't need near a perfect score for these schools, okay? It does not matter. Now let's get into the third factor, right, which is my favorite factor of them all, which I think is one of the most important factors, right? That is extracurriculars, right? Extracurriculars are the best way to show admissions officers your passion, your interests, your talents, right? And people, high schoolers, as young as like freshmen, should be really paying attention, especially to extracurriculars, right? Sort of already thinking about what are their really true passions, right? What do they want to spend most of their time out of school doing, right? So examples of extracurriculars include competitions, right? Maybe starting a business if you're interested in entrepreneurship, if you're interested in volunteering, or creating maybe a nonprofit, right? These are things that you would be doing after school, right? Which sort of show your true passions, right? It can indicate to the college admission officers that you do more than just study your textbook all day, memorize it, and then take a test, right? You are more than that. You have way more abilities than that. So this is a great way to show your passions, right? Is the activities that you do. Now let's get into the fourth factor, recommendations. Now, some people like to understress the importance of recommendations. They don't really think it's that important, but really it is. Recommendations are extremely important because they are the only section of your whole application where college admissions officers are getting a glimpse about your like personality, your talents from another person, right? Someone else, right? The only two places they will understand these various like traits and talents is your essays and your recommendations. So these are why recommendations are so important, right? So really, you should be asking a teacher recommendation from someone who really knows you well, right? A teacher that knows you well, has known you at least for a year, if not more, in your high school journey, and can really attest to your various qualities, right? Your personality traits, what makes you you, basically. There are also supplementary recommendations, which all of us really encourage you to have, which is maybe if you're an athlete, maybe you're going to get one from your coach, right? This is just a separate recommendation, which does not have to be necessarily from a teacher, but can speak, this recommender can speak more to your traits, right? How you are like after school, basically. So that is really the fourth factor. Now, the fifth factor, and which is the most important, this really can make or break. This is one of the only factors which really can make or break your college acceptance, is the essays. Now, this includes both the supplemental essays and your main Common App or Coalition App essay, right? The essays are the best place to show who you really are, right? Showing your interests, right? If you want to come across not only as a person who is really academic, right? Maybe created like a nonprofit, but also you want to come across as a really funny sort of guy, and this is the perfect place to talk about it. Maybe you'll be structuring your Common App essay to sort of show your like humor also, right? This is the best place to show, because again, the college admissions officers are not going to meet with you, right? They'll only learn as much about you through these essays. So you want to make sure that your essays really show who you really are, right? Don't try and be fake. Don't try and have like fake interests that you're not really into, right? Really just show who you are. Be genuine, right? And it'll show in your essays. It really will. Now, apart from these main factors that we would say in college admissions, we also do have others. Now, some people don't like to really talk about these factors, but we're just bringing it up because, again, most colleges use the holistic admissions process, if you don't know already, which means they don't care just about the GPA, just about your recommendations, right? It's holistic. They're going to look at everything. So in that, they also are going to look at interviews. They may look at if your parents are donors to the school, right? They may look at legacy, right? One of the first things in the Common App they look at is your parents and whether they went to the school you're applying to, right? That's one of the first things in the Common App, right? So they are going to look at it. And they also are going to look at if you are a URM, underrepresented and minority. Now, the weightage of how much these factors really play a role in your acceptance or your rejection, it varies greatly depending on the school. But just know that these are also factors, right, that do exist. These are facts. So now these are really the factors. Now let's get into some 4 of these tips that we have for you, right, in your college acceptance. First, start early. Even if you are a freshman, right, you can start thinking about what extracurriculars you want to get into, right? What courses you want to take. Stop thinking about your coursework for your sophomore and junior year, right? To make sure that you have a rigorous course load. Right. Number two, your college list. Especially if you are a junior, you should be already having a college list, if not making one right now, right? Create a college list, have your reaches, your target schools, and your safeties, right? Make sure you have a list. Look into, based on your interests, or if you know your potential major, look into what are the best schools for that major, right? Start creating that list. Again, these are tips which can make your college application process so much more easier. Number three, meet all your requirements. Now, this goes back to a college list. Make a spreadsheet, right? Put all the requirements, put maybe the ranges of your SAT and ACT scores that you'll find online for these colleges. Make sure you are sort of at least average or like meeting those requirements, right? Make lines. Some colleges even allow you to add supplemental stuff. For example, you can, if you've done research, they allow you to add a supplementary research paper, right? So look at all those requirements. Look at what all your colleges that you're applying to, what they offer, right? That is extremely important. And lastly, always get feedback, right? When you're writing those essays, make sure you get feedback from multiple people, your various teachers, your friends, your parents. Make sure you get a lot of feedback. That's important. It's not really cheating. You're really just trying to get extra help from people, right? So those are sort of our general tips, right? Our 4 tips on how to really go about this college application process. Now, before we sort of end this sort of small presentation, I want to end with some things to think about right now. Right? Think about, especially if you're a junior, you should really be thinking about these things, right? What are your defining points, right? Think about 3 defining points, right? Related to your personality, related to your talents, related to your passion, right? Think about 3 defining points that you need to show the admissions officer. If you think about it as the elevator pitch, right? You have 1 minute to talk about yourself to your admissions officer. What would you talk about? What were the 3 things that you were talking about, right? Make sure that in your essays, in your activities, that you are showing those sort of passions and, traits, right? Second, how do you convey this narrative, right? If it's a talent, if it's a competition that you won, is it something like that? Is it a business? Maybe you're going to put that on the activity section or the award section of your application. And you leave your essay to talk about your personality traits, right? It depends. You need to be thinking about where you're going to put. Don't repeat the same information, right? If you talk about maybe how you're interested in entrepreneurship and you created a business and you put in the activity section, maybe talk less about it in your supplementals, right? Maybe in supplementals, you talk more about your personality traits. Find a balance where you can talk about all your defining points. Like third, your personal essays. Again, what do you want to convey in your essays? This is the only place where you can truly show the admissions officers who you really are, right? Everything else is really objective, right? It's a SAT score. It's a GPA. They're all numbers. That's all they are. Awards. It's an international award. It's a state award. That's all it is, right? There's no description about who you really are, right? Essays are super important, right? Think about what do you want to convey? What is the one thing that you really want that admissions officers to know? Are you funny? Are you extremely adventurous, right? Or are you just more academic? You're into hardcore research, right? What do you want them to know about you that makes you probably even stand out from your peers? And lastly, essays, which is the 4th thing, right? Activities. Focus on the most important activities. Even though, the Common App gives you like 10 places to put like 10 different activities, right? Make sure you are at least focusing on, 1 or 2 activities that you really focused on. I know MIT only allows you to input like 3 to 5 activities, right? Because they know that a high schooler can't do 10 activities super well, right? You can't devote all your time to so many activities, right? So especially if you're a freshman or sophomore, especially be thinking about what are those few activities that you can devote the most amount of time to and that you can show in your college application. So this is, and to end it out, this is a quote that we made from our team, right? Get started now, right? It doesn't even matter if you're a freshman. Even if you're a freshman, get started. Start thinking about what activities you want to do, extracurriculars. This is not necessarily to get started on the college application, but start developing that sort of narrative. The whole purpose is to sort of create a narrative around who you are and how do you fit in that sort of puzzle in the college, right? How are you going to fit into your specific college's class? Especially if you're reaching for your like dream school, you want to make sure that you fit in their overall narrative, right? That you have a personal story. You are like sort of special, right? You are unique. You want to show the admissions officers that. So that is it. Now we're going to transition off to the Q&A session, right? We want to know what questions do you have for us?
All right, so we're back here with all four of us. And first of all, that was a great presentation, Addie. Great job on really conveying what it means to have that narrative in a college application. And I'm sure all of us here on the panel would agree that it's something that's very important. And none of them could hear me because I was muted that whole time. But I was just talking about how a great presentation that was, and how yeah, we will be transitioning into the Q&A section now. So I'm gonna let Addie answer the first question.
Okay, I need the, okay, give me. Wait, Jeffrey, can you let me know the question?
Yeah, how about let's first answer a really broad question, which is like, when should you start your college apps?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so when do you start your college apps? Well, I would recommend. I need the. Give me one sec. So I would recommend starting your college apps. Like earliest I would say is towards the springtime of the spring semester. That is when. Okay. Wait, am I still on? Okay, so I would recommend. Okay, so I would recommend starting earliest I would say is junior year spring semester, because until then I would really focus in your junior year of looking into the various competitions that you do, really focusing on your grades, right? Because junior years.
Okay, I'll take it.
So for those of you that forgot the question, it's when should you start your college applications?
Okay. Yeah, so just to go off what Addie said a little bit, so obviously you can start your college applications, anytime, right? He just said that, every single year you can do something that will help you towards your college application. So like your freshman year, you can start by, getting seeing what extracurriculars you want to do, seeing what courses you want to take out through high school that kind of meet your college's requirements and that show the college's your interests inside school. And, sophomore year, you can look at, what competitions you want to do, what their SAT scores, standardized test scores are. And then through that, you can kind of know how to prepare for those tests, which you will probably take your junior year. And then junior year, obviously, most important year, you want to make sure you do well on those standardized tests. So that year, you can, really study for those and make sure that you do well on those. And then going off what Addie said, he said that you can really start your application, right? The whole process where you sign up and then you start asking for teacher rec letters. You can start that towards the end of your junior year, right? In the spring, close to the summertime. But yeah, springtime is good. You probably want to ask your teachers for recommendations before the summer of junior year, just so they have the summertime that they can kind of think about it, they can write about it, and so they can get that done in the beginning of senior year. So I would say, yeah, earliest time to actually start the Common App, probably the end of junior year. You don't want to start too early because then it's kind of just going to be sitting there. But you can really start working on it during the summer of junior year, and then obviously into the beginning of your senior year. That's the time when I guess most of your classmates will be working on that as well. So you can talk with them, you can interact, you can get tips and from everyone around you. So yeah, just really, really start as early as you can, and then probably go into it. In the beginning, go into it hard in the summer of junior year or the beginning of senior year.
I just wanted to add something off that. So when we're talking about college apps, that's distinct from the college process as a whole. So we're saying that the actual applications, you should aim to start them obviously in your junior year, like Timmy talked about at length. But in terms of this entire process of preparing for colleges in general, this is something that honestly you should probably start in your freshman year. And I know like that sounds crazy, like who starts thinking about colleges when you're a freshman in high school? But that's one of the things that I wish I knew when I was a freshman, when I didn't know about any of this college prep stuff, and I kind of got a late start off that. So it's going to be really nice if you're able to just start thinking about these general things like what colleges do you want to apply to, what are you interested in, that kind of stuff, and then you can go into more specific application related stuff later in your junior year. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next question here. We have a question from Lavanya. What was the hardest part of the college application for you? Okay, I think this is something that we all can take a shot at. So I'm going to go first. So I think the hardest part for me was the interviews. And basically, most colleges have an interview with you sometime after you submit your application and before your decision comes out. Usually, it's an alum person that just interviews you in like a coffee shop or something like that. And I found this to be like, I guess, the hardest part because the rest of my application I could like prepare for and I knew exactly what to do, right? Like for an essay, they gave me a prompt and I could spend hours revising that and making the wording like perfect and the way I wanted it. And same goes with like the activities or any of the other parts of the college application. But I guess for the interview, it's more like spontaneous. Like you can kind of prepare, like you can search up common interview questions and prepare, and I recommend you do that. But of course, you can't expect like exactly what's going to happen. So kind of for me, I guess, just that spontaneous kind of thinking of what I want to say and sometimes like regretting what I said and wishing I could take it back after. Maybe I would have like worded it better if I had a second chance. Just little things like that. That was my toughest part. Let's go to Srinath next. What was your hardest part of the college application?
For me, it definitely was deciding how many schools I should apply for in like the target section or the safety section or the reach section. In hindsight, I feel like I applied too much to my safety, to too many safety schools. So I wish I could have changed that now. So when you're deciding which colleges you're applying to, you only have a certain number because if you have too many, you're not going to be able to dedicate enough time towards the schools that you're hoping to get into. So you definitely need to consider like that balance when you're trying to apply to schools, which is something I wish I focused more on when I was applying.
For sure, for sure. Timmy, what about you?
For me, during the college admissions process, I would think the hardest thing is brainstorming essays and writing essays, right? We all know the essays are the most important part of the admissions process. I mean, the college application. So for me, it was difficult at first because I was thinking, okay, this is the most important thing. How do I make this the best it can be? How do I make this perfect? So yeah, just looking online, asking friends, having peers look at my essays, getting feedback, that really helped me during my process. So when you're applying to colleges, And if you find you're struggling on the essays, yeah, make sure you get people all around you to, help you and look at those essays, because an extra set of eyes will really help you, filter out those, small mistakes that you might make. So yeah, for me, it'd be some of the essays that I had to write.
Yeah, and especially on your last point there, the extra set of eyes. I mean, you don't have to it's not that much work to ask someone to read your essay. It's more work for them actually. So just asking your friends, asking your parents, your family, that's really valuable stuff. Lastly, we have Addie. What was your hardest part of the college application?
Yeah. So I would definitely I agree with Timmy. It was the essays because for me it was really easy for me to talk about activities, and I was able to really easily connect activities. In my interviews, I mainly talked about what activities I do. Um, so it was really easy for me in like awards. Everything was related to my activity. Right, my activities were really into like science, sort of thing. So it was really easy for me to connect with that. But then I was never really showing my personality and my various like personality traits. So it was really hard for me to write an essay that showed more into my personality, right? Who I really am, what I talked about earlier, that personal narrative. That was probably the hardest part. It was easy for me to just talk about my activities, but really getting into my personality, right? Talking about who I am was sort of difficult because I really never thought about that before. Really looked deep and got to know more about who I am and all that stuff. So that was the hardest part.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. Like, it's not every day that you just think about like, who am I, or like what do people think of me? Like, you don't think about these things every day, and it can be difficult to kind of write all this down on a piece of paper in 650 words. Like, I don't know I think I kind of found that tough too. But I definitely know what you mean, and yeah, that took me a while as well. Okay, so that was the question from Lavanya. So hopefully we answered that well. We have a question from Grace. What's the best way to show my community service on the Common App? If I have non-regular community service, but it all adds up to 150 plus, should I just combine it into one Common App activity? Oh, that's a really great question. I'm gonna answer this first, and I'll let you guys add on. So this is like, I guess it's a judgment call. Um, it really depends on the specific, I guess, activity. Like, I guess I wouldn't put volunteering as like one activity and put all the organizations that you volunteer under that activity. I think that's too broad. But I think it's okay to, let's say you're doing a lot of work in like political advocacy or something like that. Like, and maybe you worked with two or three different organizations uh, in that particular area. I think that might be fine to put under one heading, especially if you're like kind of running low on space. But I mean, it really depends. And if you have any more questions like specific to your application, feel free to message any of us, and we'll try to help you out the best that we can. Now, tangentially related though, on that Common App activities list, you should always aim to fill out all 10 activities. Like, it's if you can, go for it. Like, if at the end you have to put a couple activities that like maybe you didn't spend that much time on, but you were still in, it's better to put them than not put them. In my view, at least. But I'm sure I'd like to know the opinions of my fellow panelists here. So anyone want to chime in? Addie, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I agree with Jeffrey, and I would say also, since you do have so many, I guess so much like hours in volunteering, I would even, if you saw like one of our videos of AchieveEd, it was about extenuating circumstance essays, and I talked about how you should add it in the additional information section. But if you really don't have anything to write in that additional information section, this would be a perfect place to really, because they give you 650 words. That would be a perfect place to really list, the various organizations and really talk about what you do in more detail, and then give, sort of that hours. So you don't just have to put it in the activity section, you can also put in the additional information section. This would be a perfect place for that.
Yeah, I will add on a little bit to what Addie said. So another place I guess you could put your like community activities
Work or
is
community service.
you're going to have a lot of supplemental essays for your colleges, and a lot of those will ask for different types of things, and or like how have you been a leader in your community, or how do you want to change your community. So there are many opportunities to share your community service and share your volunteering. So just because you can't fit everything into the Common App 10 activities, it's limited. It's only a limited amount of characters. So I don't think they're expecting you to fit everything in there. But you'll have a lot of other opportunities to share those as well. So
Yeah, like a quick example, like personal example, when I didn't have enough space, was I combined like all my honor society work, like all of that volunteering work into one activity for me so that I could have more space to elaborate on some of my different activities that I did. So that's something that you might want to try, like grouping your different activities together.
Yeah, great stuff from all of us here, hopefully. But okay, we have another question here from Jason. Are sports important? Um, I did a school sport. I think most of us did at least one.
I did nothing, so I can talk. Sports.
It's okay. No, I mean, this event.
Mountain. I can barely hike a mountain, so like I can't do any sports.
Whoa, no, you hiked that mountain good. You steamrolled
I
that.
came like 2 hours. Yeah. So like so sports yeah if you're gonna be an athlete especially in college, then obviously, right, you should be like a top athlete, I guess. But yeah, otherwise sports are not if you, academic sort of areas your thing, right? If you're really looking into the grades and all that, that's really where you're like, you stand out, then sports don't matter.
oh yeah, I will.
About that.
Yeah, I will add on a little bit to what you said. Yeah, sports mostly I would say aren't something that is super super important. But again, it can matter to a certain degree depending on like your extracurricular activities. So if you're like a team captain or you're a leader on that team, and you're in that sport for 4 years, your whole high school years, right? That may play some role, rather than if you're in and out of sports, every single year. So yeah, it doesn't matter that much because academics are the focus, right? When you go to college, you're going to secondary education. So yeah, academics are still the most important things, but yeah, sports, they may help a little bit, but yeah, they won't be any make or break or anything. And I guess sports, potentially could help with scholarships, towards the end. But yeah, not a make or break for your application.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's really all I would say anyways. Srinath, do you have anything to add? Okay, let's move on to the...
That pretty much covered it.
Okay.
No, I was just saying it covered it.
Okay. Let's move on to our next question here. Kevin Academy, is it important to attend high school classes? Um, I'll take
Yes.
that one, and I think we can wrap this up in one sitting here. I think it is important to attend high school classes unequivocally because, I mean, that's where you learn. And tangentially related to that, if you don't show up to class, your teachers are not going to like you. And when it comes time to ask for rec letters, good luck with that, right? I know a kid who skipped a lot of classes, and he's currently like struggling to find teachers to write a rec letter for him. So don't be that kid, and show up to classes. Don't be late to school. Be a good student, and that should be a really big step in the right direction. Okay, let's move on from there. Grace asks another question. If I have a medical certification, LNA, which section would that go under in the Common App? I'm not a big expert on this. Srinath, do you want to take this question?
I don't really know.
I'm not sure. What is LNA? What exactly?
It's a licensed nurse assistant.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Like an activity? Oh.
No, it's like it's a certification you get. Like I think South.
You can put it in. You can probably put it in like.
You can put it as an honor, maybe.
In the honor section.
Yeah. I would put it in honor. And also, if you want to talk more about that, since that seems to be quite unique, then I would even put in the additional information section too. Like, talk more about it. If you want to elaborate to the admissions officers, like what you do and all, or like what the certification is for, like maybe why you got it, that would be a perfect place to elaborate on it. Apart from the honor section, yeah, I would say that's definitely a good place.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's, I don't have that much expertise with like certifications like that, so I can't say anything. But hopefully, Addie and Timmy uh, answered that well. Okay, moving on here, we have Pika Wubs, one of my favorite people there. Uh, Thank you for joining the stream. So, question for me: did you put on your Common App anything about Past Amazing? Okay, for those of you that do not know, I run another YouTube channel called Past Amazing, and it's gotten pretty big over the years. So I did put it on my Common App activities. In fact, it was the first activity that I put right up there at the top. And the reason I did that was because I thought it was something that was unique because not everybody has a YouTube channel, right? So I thought that it would help me stand out as an applicant among all the other people who are putting like honor societies as their activities. Like if I can put something that's more unique, it's easier to catch the admissions officer's eyes when they're looking at your application. So that's what I did, and I did actually elaborate on my YouTube channel in my essays, but that's a separate matter. Yeah, I thought that was something that was pretty important to me, which is why I included it. Okay, next question right here. Rebecca, are there any Common App topics we should avoid? Oh, I this is actually a really good question because I was planning to make a video on this very topic, but I didn't get to it. At least for this past month. Maybe I'll make it sometime in the future, or I can just answer it right now. So honestly, like the Common App essay is so broad that you can write about like 99.9% of topics and it'll be fine. Now, there's only a few things that I would generally recommend against, and even this is just a recommendation, not like a clear cut, like don't do it, but more of like a try not to do it and try to find something else if you can kind of thing. So first, I would try to avoid talking about things like mental health or stuff like that. And I'm not saying that that isn't important. In fact, I'm saying it's the opposite. Like mental health is really important. In fact, it's so important, right, that you shouldn't even put it in your college application. Like that's something that I think is something that you should speak to like professionals about if you do have mental health problems. And that's a very serious issue. Now, the reason I say that I would generally try not to put it into your college application, your college application essay, is because I don't know if I guess colleges kind of get this like colleges aren't sure whether they should admit you if you openly talk about your mental health history or your mental health issues because if you're having these issues with your mental health, then they're wondering if you can handle the rigor of college, right, where there's going to be a lot of other challenges. So they're keeping you in mind too. Like they don't want to admit you if they think you're just going to struggle and you're going to drop out, right? That they don't want that to happen to you. So if you do have like a really significant like mental health problem that you want to talk about in narrow circumstances, I guess go for it. But generally, if you can find something else to talk about, um, I think that would be better, at least from what I think. And I'm curious to see what the others think as well. Now, the second thing I would say to try to avoid talking about too much, generally, once again, is really like hot button political issues. I mean, a lot of people do really great political work, like they're volunteering for congressional candidates or they're even starting their own nonprofits or something like that. And that's really great work. And, you should definitely be proud and feel free to talk about that. But I'm talking about like writing an essay specifically on an issue. Like, I don't know, take for example, like abortion or something like that, right? Like if your essay is about why abortion is wrong or why abortion is okay, and you're kind of tying yourself to it, but not really. You're just kind of pushing that issue. I don't know if that's the most effective topic. I feel like there's better ways for you to talk about issues like that. Like if you had a lot of work in that issue, in the issue of abortion, for example, maybe you could tie yourself to it and talk about how you, based on your beliefs, worked towards something that you thought was important. And I think that's better. But simply just like writing an essay on that issue, I don't know. I wouldn't do it myself. But like I said, I'm curious to see what the others think.
Yeah, I'll
Like,
add on to it a little. Oh, Srinath, do you want to go first? You can go.
sure, but like something I was just gonna like say is that you have these stereotypical like cliche essays that you want to avoid as well. Like for example, I know like a lot of kids might just kind of go through their resume instead of actually showcasing like a personal story that they've been through, or like you might have someone who went through like so they struggled at something and then suddenly they realized something and then they became successful at it, or you might have like maybe like someone from a foreign nation came to America and like they had to adjust to like living. So like there are a lot of cliche essays that you want to avoid because you know that a lot of people are also going to be writing those essays and it's going to be harder for yours to stand out among your peers. So just those, keep in mind those um, types of essays and try to avoid them.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question because we have a couple more here that I want to get to. Grace, another question. Okay, very active in the chat. That's good. What do you think is the best use of space for the descriptions in the activities section? Anyone want to take a shot at that? Or I can.
I'll share a little
Okay.
bit, and then you can probably take it from there. But yeah, very good question. It's always a question because it's only 150 characters, or so it's really really short. I mean, you really have limited space, and I think one important thing. I mean, two important things for this, and then I'll pass it to the others. But two important things is that one, obviously, you want to show, I guess, the most outstanding things you've done in that activity. So for example, if you are writing about some research project you do in that description space, you probably want to talk about professors you work with, competitions you won, right? Kind of bragging, but also you just want to show as much as you can in that 150 words. And the second thing I think that you should keep in mind is that they're not really looking at your grammar or how you write in that 150 words. So don't try to do complete sentences. Just try to get as much information as you can into that section because in this case, I would say quantity is better than quality because they want to see more in that 150 words. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. So if anyone else wants to take it from here, you guys can add on to that.
I thought that was pretty good. Uh, okay. Um, okay, let's move on to the next question here. Tyson, how many recommendation letters should you have? Okay, so I'll take this one. Um, I think I think most colleges want two recommendation letters, so I think two is the golden number you should be aiming for. Very few colleges, I think, want three. So maybe you should ask their teachers, but this is definitely something you should look for specific colleges on their websites and stuff like that, because every college is different. But generally, two is the magic number. So ask two teachers. And then on top of that, you can have these kind of what they call supplemental rec letters, where you can ask your coaches, you can ask I don't know, your counselors, people who are outside your academics. So I know some people who ask their like professors that they've worked with for rec letters, and that's a great thing to do because you've worked with them a lot, and they can write, I'm sure, a great letter for you. Now, as to whether you should pursue these supplemental rec letters, I mean, if you want to, it's really optional. There's a lot of competing kind of arguments on whether supplemental rec letters actually help, because on one hand, I mean, they can give you they can give the admissions officers additional insight into you. But on the other hand, like these admissions officers are probably reading like 10,000 applications, and they really don't want to have to read an extra rec letter if they don't have to. So I guess if you really think that another rec letter will add something, like add a new dimension, then go ahead and do it. But if it's just going to be like from a third teacher, just so you can like inundate the college with as many rec letters as you can, I would try to avoid that if possible. Anyone want to add anything?
I mean, like if you're going for another optional rec letter, I would maybe suggest trying to have it from like a different perspective other than like a teacher perspective. So maybe like a sports coach or an employer, maybe that could help. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's a really common third rec letter to do. Okay. Let's see. Another question here from Rebecca. What are your predictions on the implications of COVID-19 on this year's college application process other than schools going test optional? The test optional thing was like the biggest thing, but I think Addie has something to say.
Yeah. I heard this in one of my like college Facebook groups, and I think couple of people agree is that there's an increasing number, especially in our class, right? So class of 2020, a lot of people doing a gap year, right? Especially for my school, like for Stanford, because they're doing pretty much online for freshmen. There were so many people doing a gap year, and because of that, there were like a lot of people see that, or a lot of people realize that the acceptance rates for next year will probably be lower because they have so many people taking a gap year. Now, this is just what I've heard from like other students and like other people who, are college professionals, I guess college application professionals. This may not be the case at all, but from what I've heard, it may be likely that, especially at top colleges, that, a lot of people do gap years, that it may be possible that the acceptance rate might be a little bit lower because they had so many people doing the gap year. So unfortunately, that's just how it is.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's actually a really good point that I hadn't thought about with like all the gap years and the lower acceptance rates. Yeah, that might be tough on this year's students. But something kind of related to that. So a lot of people this year, I feel like, are gonna write their Common App essay on COVID-19 or something related to that. Like I can already envision all the essays like first everything was going great in March and then everything shut down, and then that's when I realized the like to never take anything for granted, something along that line. Like I can already see all those essays popping up. So the reason I say that is don't do that. Don't write your essay on that unless you have a really unique kind of scenario. Like if it's something truly unique, go for it. If it's just that you missed the DECA finals, I mean, like 20,000 people missed DECA finals, and I that's not like that unique, But if it's something like very personal, then I think it's actually a great topic to do. But yeah, so I think that's kind of the effect of COVID-19 generally on this year's college application process. Okay, so another question looks like from Tyson. Should you take the SAT for the incoming seniors who haven't taken it, and what should you do if you got a bad score on it? Okay, so I think another way to phrase this is if you haven't, or like if when SATs are reopening whenever in the fall, whenever that is, should you take it if you're an incoming senior now? That's an interesting question. Who wants to take a shot? Okay, I will then.
I mean,
oh.
I mean, I was just gonna say like it couldn't hurt, right? So like you can just try to see, and if you get like a really good score, then that's all the benefit towards you. But like you don't have to feel pressured as much to get like a really good score, because you're going to have a bunch of your peers who are going to be in the same boat as you. They weren't able to take the SAT or ACT multiple times to improve their score. So yeah, Jeffrey, you have something to add?
No, I was going to say what you were going to say. So that's great. All right. We have one more question, looks like, from Grace again. In one of your videos, you mentioned creating a theme in your application. Did you provide your recommenders anything separate besides just a list of your activities to further support your theme? Addie, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take that. So, that's an interesting question. So, as I said previously, you should be asking your teachers, right, to give a recommendation if they really know you well, right? So they should know you at least for a year. So in that, I would say specifically for me, I did not really have to give more than activities because they already knew me really well. Like they knew me at least for a year. Actually, more, they pretty much knew me for like 2, 3 years. So I would say if you have to really try to give your teacher, like your recommender, if you have to give them a lot more information about you, then I would probably hesitate to ask them to give a recommendation because really you should be asking for a recommendation from a teacher who really knows you well, right? They already have like a good background about who you are. So that's what I would say. But again, if you don't have another option, and you've only known your teachers really in school, maybe they weren't even advisors to a club or something, then I would say, yeah, talk about that theme with them. Just talk about. A lot of teachers will already ask you like, what words do they want to use to like this? Do you want them to use to like describe you or something? So they might already ask you for that. But in any case, yeah. But I would recommend that if you have to tell a teacher a lot about yourself already, then I would really hesitate towards asking them. That's what I would say.
I think that was a very good response, Addie. Thank you for that. It looks like that is it for the questions, and fortunately, that also marks around the end of our time here tonight with y'all. Now, before we go, I wanted to kind of ask a fun question to you all. So, um, if if you could assign a assign a song, a theme song to the college that you're going to, what would it be? Addie?
A theme song to the college I'm going to. Oh my goodness. Um, a theme song, huh?
What's poppin'?
I would, yeah, so I would say On the Floor by Jennifer Lopez because yeah, it's just more of an excited, upbeat party sort of like theme, and I would say you should be really excited, like how that song is, like you should be that excited to like go to your college that you chose. So I would say that would be my theme.
Very cool. Good, spontaneous response. Srinath, what about you?
I would say All I Do Is Win.
Why?
Pretty self-explanatory.
Okay.
Flex.
Timmy, what
I
about
don't know, this question
Like
caught me off guard.
Timmy,
like win.
what about you? What's your theme
Um,
song?
I'd probably say "Sunday Best" by Surfaces. I feel like Wisconsin's gonna be a very very happy, very very feel good type of vibe. So yeah, I think it's gonna be great. It's gonna be an adventure, and yeah, it's gonna be cool. So, and now Jeffrey, it's your turn.
That's great you transitioned to me because I asked the question, so I definitely should have an answer, right? Well, I would say my theme song for Dartmouth is um See You Again by Wiz Khalifa because um, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and I really like the vibe of that song, and it just sings Dartmouth to me. So yes, I totally thought of that. Um, all right. Anyways, that is it for tonight. Wow, that was a great stream. Thank you, Addy, for the presentation. Wonderful. And thank you all for joining me here on the stream. And by the way, guys, if you are still watching, make sure you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel. We're going to be posting a lot of videos this summer about the college process, a lot about current events in college admissions as well, like how a lot of schools are going test optional and the recent I think Title IV changes. A lot of interesting stuff coming up. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. And once again, thank you all for coming and spending a little time of your day here tonight with us. Now, until next time, I guess I will see you later. Any parting words from the crew?
Let us know if you want another like live stream like this later on in the summer. Maybe if you have like extra questions, we can dive, because this was like really general, right, overview, and this was our first time. So if you have any specific questions, like we can just have like a Q&A session or something, or maybe we can just talk about, each person can talk about their whole experience throughout their college application. What do they think made them stand out for their college? So maybe it's, let us know if you're interested in that.
Okay, yeah, I'll add one more thing. Some form of this live stream will be posted later, so if you missed any questions or want to rewatch Addy's amazing PowerPoint, you'll have the opportunity to do that. So, yeah.
All right, sounds good.
Remember to subscribe.
Thank you, Srinath. Sounds
Check
good.
out our other videos.
Oh, yes, for sure. Yeah. Okay, that is going to be it for today. We will see you soon. I promise that. But until then, we will see you later. Peace.
Take care.
See ya.